President's General Advisory Committee on Arms Control said it plainly. We do not have nuclear missile treaties with Britain, France, India, Pakistan, China, or other nuclear weapon states. Why do we need one with Russia? And quote, it is because of the recent passing of the New START treaty between the United States and Russia that my partner and I urge the U.S. to reconsider its policy decisions. We stand firmly resolved that the United States federal government should significantly reform its policy towards Russia. But before we look at how the United States should reform that policy, let's look at a point of background. Simply, what is New START? The Washington Post on December 21st of 2010 stated, and quote, the treaty would do three main things. It would cap the number of deployed long-range nuclear warheads at each site at 1,550. It would reduce the number of deployed nuclear-capable submarines, long-range missiles, and heavy bombers to 700. Finally, it would reestablish a system in which each of the nuclear giants monitor the other's arsenal. And as the Los Angeles Times reported, the New START Treaty was ratified by the United States on December 22nd, 2010. And quote, my partner and I propose today a new course of action under the following plan. Our one and only mandate will be that the United States will withdraw from the New START Treaty with Russia through its exit clause, which states that a country can withdraw if, quote, it decides extraordinary events have jeopardized its supreme interests, end quote. With an affirmative ballot, the United States will send Russia a notice stating its reason for withdrawal is the treaty's limits on United States missile defense systems. According to the terms of the treaty, the United States will exit 3 months after this notification is sent. The first extremely harmful effect of the New START Treaty is shown under Justification 1. Missile defense hampered. Missile defense is hampered in two powerful ways. The first is under the New START Treaty, all effective missile defense systems are banned. So the A point is all effective missile defense systems banned. Dr. James Carfano, a PhD, director of the Davis Institute for International Studies, on November 28, 2010 said, and quote, the treaty limits U.S. missile defenses by prohibiting conversion of offensive missile launchers to launchers of defensive interceptors. These conversions have been done in the past and might be required in case of future crisis, end quote. He went on to say that because of these limits, the United States is only building weak missile defense. Vice President Biden sees no problem with New START because White House plans envision none of the components of comprehensive missile defense that could outpace current threats or deter the emergence of future ones. The United States has claimed that New START does not hamper missile defense, but that is only because we have opted to build simply ineffective systems. But the second way it hampers missile defense is in its creation of a new commission to reinterpret parts of the treaty whenever it wishes. It leaves limits on U.S. missile defenses open to interpretation. So the B point is open to interpretation. Stephen G. Hadley, the 21st U.S. Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, on June 10, 2010, said, and quote, the most serious threat to missile defense is contained in the power given to the Bilateral Consultative Commission. The BCC is authorized to agree upon additional measures to improve the effectiveness of the treaty. Repeated significant changes involving missile defense could take place without Senate advice and consent. Such a broad mandate and authority is unprecedented. Peter Brooks, the Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary for Asian Affairs, talking about this commission, went on to say that, and quote, under previous treaties, overinterpretation and self-imposition of restraints led to relocation and negation, less efficient and more expensive U.S. missile defense and weapons systems, end quote. The impact to this situation is that we are vulnerable to attack. Michelle Van Volgak, a research fellow at the International Institute for Political Science, on January 25, 2011, said, and quote, ballistic missile defense becomes more important to U.S. national security as the amount of U.S. strategic weapons go down and rogue states with growing intercontinental range ballistic missile capability emerge, end quote. Essentially, the United States enemy's arsenal are only increasing, while the United States has chosen to enter a treaty that forces our defense to diminish. We make ourselves vulnerable to attack But this is not the only impact to crippled missile defense. The second impact is that withdrawal is warranted. Ben Lerner, a director of policy operations at the Center for Security Policy, explained on December 27, 2010, and quote, "According to diplomatic cables, Iran has obtained advanced missiles from North Korea with the range to strike Western Europe. North Korea recently disclosed to a visiting American scientist that it is constructing a previously covert uranium enrichment facility. Surely, these are extraordinary events that should prompt a recalculation of whether now is the time to allow Russia to hamstring our missile defense. We were careless going into START. We should not be so careless as to remain in this arrangement where circumstances clearly warrant our withdrawal." End quote. The United States cannot ignore this blatant threat to national and international security, but finally will examine the most dangerous part of the New START treaty. United States officials have ignored the fact that the treaty severely limits our missile defense because they believe that cooperation with Russia and itself is worth it. This disregards the fact that Russia will only cooperate with us in this way, that is, only benefiting themselves. This is shown in justification 2, unequal relationships. On June 16th of 2010, Gleb Plawowski, an influential political analysis closely linked to the Kremlin elite, said, and quote, "Let's not kid ourselves. Obama is no ally of ours. Obama has no support, is on the brink of an abyss. He needs us more than we need him." Where U.S. officials see dialogue and concession as a mean of winning over the other side, the Russian elite see concessions as a mean of weakness. A return to the arms talks and therefore a return to the mechanisms of the Cold War is not the best way to build trust, end quote. If we continue to cooperate like this with Russia, the impact is that we will have unprofitable future relations. Dr. Stephen Blank, a professor at the Strategic Studies Institute of the U.S. Army War College in 2010 said, and quote, "A realistic understanding of Russian intentions, rather than the vakishly optimistic view shared by many commentators, ought to be the true basis for engaging Moscow diplomatically. Any reset in relations should come from a cold-blooded calculation of interests, not sentimentality or allegiance, advancing our own goals as seriously as Russia is advancing its own," end quote. Because the United States will be forced to severely handicap its missile defense systems meant to protect the American people, and because New START will set the tone for future cooperation with Russia as simply a U.S. concession, I strongly urge a vote against New START. Thank you.
All right, everybody ready? All right. Did Russia push to have New START ratified?
Russia did sign the treaty with America, yes.
Did Russia specifically ask the U.S. to hurry up and ratify the treaty?
Russia was in agreement with signing the treaty.
Okay. Was a major point of the treaty to really help relations with Russia?
That was something that was stressed by our government.
Okay. Will these efforts be stopped once the New START treaty will be repealed?
Relations with Russia?
Will the efforts by the New START treaty to help strengthen relations be stopped?
Well, by taking that out in the New START treaty, the effects of the New START treaty aren't there, but that doesn't mean that we won't further pursue relations.
Okay. Would you say that Russia is an enemy?
No, not.
So, isn't it true that underneath your plan, the whole point is to really protect from Russia?
To protect from Russia?
Yes.
By pulling out, because we're repealing New START because it harms our own defense.
Okay, would it help our defense if we knew what nuclear sites other countries are building?
Possibly.
Isn't it true that START 1 was ended in December of last year? 2 years ago, sorry?
Yes.
Okay, isn't it true that in the time period between the end of that START and the start of New START, actually Russia built a nuclear site that we didn't know anything about?
I'll take your word for it.
Okay. Do Russia and the U.S. have 90% of the nuclear bombs in the world? Okay. Are you saying that New START hurts our defense because we have less weapons?
I'm saying that New START hurts our defense because we cannot build stronger missile defense that will outpace threats currently.
Okay, so how much does it really lower our missile defense?
Our missile defense?
Yes.
In the well, as we showed, that we can build missile defense, but it can't be anything that can outpace the threats currently.
Okay, so about how many weapons would we still be able to build?
I believe the reduction is about 30% with the missile treaty.
Okay, which would get to what number?
That's what the first species items for warheads is 1,550.
Okay.
It's different if that's the first species one.
Okay, about how many nuclear weapons would it take to blow up the world?
I'm not exactly sure on that number.
Do you think it would take a lot less than 1,550 to blow up the world?
Yeah.
Okay, did Obama use up a whole lot of political capital to press to have New START ratified?
Political capital.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. Where does it say in the treaty that missile defense is not allowed?
The quote that we had by the gentleman here, it says that the treaty limits U.S. missile defense.
Okay. I did notice ellipses in your mandate quote about the withdrawal clause. What did the rest say?
It says that it decides extraordinary events have jeopardized the supreme interest. If either country decides that an extraordinary event has occurred, then that country has the right to pull out of the treaty.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Could we have time in 30 seconds?